Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 107 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr. It is September 12th, 2024, and for this feature, I have guitarist Danny Stag and drummer Matt Muckle of the classic rock band Kingdom Come as my guest. Kingdom Come formed in 1987 and released two successful records, the self-titled record in 1988 and In Your Face in 1989. During this episode, we talk about the current lineup of Kingdom Come, which consists of original members Danny Stag on guitar, Rick Steier on guitar, Johnny B. Frank bass, along with newer members Matt Muckle on drums and Ezekiel Kaplan on vocals. The band will be playing a few shows during the next couple weeks and performing two new songs. In addition, Danny talks about the early history of the band and his experiences performing on a 1988 Monsters of Rock tour that featured Van Halen, the Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica, and Kingdom Come. So let's get started. Here is Danny Stag and Matt Muckle. Hey everyone, welcome to the Rock Interview Series, and we have a great special today. We have Danny and Matt from Kingdom Come with us, and Kingdom Come is going to be playing some, they have 3 dates listed, and one of them is going to be in Buffalo, New York, next Wednesday, September 18th at the Buffalo Ironworks. Danny and Matt, thank you very much for joining us here. I'll tell you one thing, a lot of my friends in Buffalo are really excited about this show on Wednesday at the Buffalo Ironworks. So it's been a while since Kingdom Come has been in town. Thank you for picking Buffalo as one of the few dates that you're playing on this little run you're doing.
Cool, yeah. Buffalo is near and dear to my heart because my mother's from just across the border in Canada, in Welland, Ontario. And so I was up there every summer. Basically, you know, where Port Colborne is on the other side of the lake. So I met a lot of people from Buffalo. A lot of, people would be up there in the summertime. So, yeah, Buffalo, I know pretty well.
Yeah.
Me as well. I know Buffalo as well. I don't really speak to the part of the family too much. They live in Buffalo.
I think the last time Kingdom Come played in Buffalo was at Rich Stadium.
I was just going to say that Monsters of Rock 1988 was a spectacular day. I believe it was Father's Day. And just like Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica, and Kingdom Come, that show must have been that tour. Not only the show, that tour must have been amazing, Danny, huh?
Yeah, it was over the top. I mean, it was. You can probably imagine what it was like being with all those maniacs, those bands, and all the huge crew, and 2 giant stages, and 30 semi trucks full of stuff, and like the smallest crowd was probably 40,000, and we did 30 stadiums in 2 months. It was nonstop insanity, but it was great. It was fun.
Matt, did you were you a fan of the band when they first came out? Kingdom Come was formed in 1987. Were you a fan of music back then?
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Kingdom Come. I was 13 years old when that album, I think, was released. I bought it when I was about 14 and bought the cassette, and I saw it on MTV on Metal Music Half Hour, and they were playing it every day. And it kept, there was like a top 10 video or top 5 video of the day on Metal Music Half Hour, and I'd see them be at the top every day for a good 2 weeks, and I became a huge fan. I went and bought the cassette, and then wore the cassette out, and then bought another one. And a funny story about being at Monsters of Rock. I was 14 years old, and I wanted to see Danny play so bad. I was such a big fan of Danny and James Kotak, and I told my parents that I was going to a swimming party with a church group, and I totally lied and went to see Kingdom Come open for Van Halen, and it was a great day. It was 95 degrees out, and we baked like hams in the sun. But I was like 14 years old, so yes, I was a huge fan of Kingdom Come, and I'm very blessed to take James's spot, and I'm very, 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 very proud to be in this band.
Well, technically, you did kind of go to church. You went swimming in a sea of people at a metal church. So
right. So Danny, my lawyer back. Yes, so it's a half lie. It's a half lie. So
Danny, that's where, I mean, back in 1988, there were like a million bands that would have loved to have that slot that Kingdom Come had. How did you guys go about getting that? I mean, your record was really hot at the time, and like Matt said, you were getting a ton of airplay on MTV. But what led to you getting that final spot on that tour?
Well, I think that the the best answer to that question was provided by Alex Van Halen or Eddie. I'm pretty sure it was Alex. Somebody asked him basically that same question. He said, "We feel they're a great band." Okay, so what I think is, I mean, thank you, Alex, but what I think is, you know, they could have got Slayer, they could have got Megadeth, they could have got, a strictly like metal, Judas Priest or something, and then it would have been, by the time Van Halen played, it might have been just a little bit too much. You know what I mean? Like another circus metal band. And Eddie, uh, I went to see Van Halen here in Pittsburgh. I think it was in 2013 or so, and everybody thought it was crazy that they were touring with Kool and the Gang, of all people. And I thought, oh, that's kind of strange. So I went to the show, and Kool and the Gang played, and everybody in the audience, they knew Kool and the Gang's hits. They were singing along. They were going crazy. It was great. It was R&B and funky and stuff, and a lot of recognizable hits. But it was you were so hungry for Van Halen when it was over. I mean, the crowd was digging it. I thought, that's genius. And Eddie said something at the time about like they didn't want people's ears to be fried. By the time they came on. So I think it was probably a combination of those things. I never said, so Edward, why did you pick us? I probably should have asked him, but I know our manager knew their manager and stuff, but there was all these bands trying to get on there, and we were pretty much the hottest band everywhere for about 6 weeks. And it was during that 6-week period that they decided who was going to be on the bill. They were still putting it in motion. And so, yeah, we got it. And I'm glad we did, because we got to play for 1 million people live in 2 months.
Yeah, one of the things that happened on that tour was the band Dokken was having some internal problems with the
Right.
band. Did you notice that, while on tour? Was that an issue on tour, or did they kind of keep it in house?
I never noticed a thing about it. Dokken and I became friends. Lead singers, everyone seems to always say about lead singers, oh, he's a real asshole, or he's a total dick and all this stuff. And I had heard like stuff about Don Dokken, that he was real difficult and he was I think that was just overblown, by everybody, and maybe in the press, trying to drum up eyeballs on their stories. But, I would hang out with Don, and we would just sit around. He was like a regular guy. He was like the guy that grew up next door to you. He was, you could talk about a bunch of different subjects, and, he was a real smart guy. And he never once said, oh, yeah, George Lynch, blah, 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 or Mick this, or Jeff Pilson that. He was, all he cared about was the music being good. And there were a lot of foreign substances floating around in those days. I was put it that way. And I think maybe everybody just needed to cool their jets a little bit. There was a lot of rock staritis that, from every direction, and it didn't affect us at all. It wasn't like there was a weird vibe around Dokken at all. I mean, Mick Brown is a super nice, jovial guy, and he was always like that. Don was serious, but funny, had a great sense of humor. So I didn't sense anything.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's get to this these upcoming dates coming up. Matt, can you tell me a little bit about how you got involved in the band, and can you also tell us about the current lineup of Kingdom Come?
Well, I've known Danny for a long time, since I was probably my freshman year in college, and I think I met you, Danny, when you were in Royal Jelly, and
Mhm.
and we played one or two gigs together. And then I got signed to Atlantic and was touring, then moved to LA and played with a bunch of different bands. Like Buck Cherry, worked with them for a while, and then I was Lynch Mob and Paul Gilbert and whatnot. So then I came back, moved back to LA to Pittsburgh, and Danny and I reunited, reconnected, and we were working on some recordings together at the same studio, and there were some internal problems with the band, with Kingdom Come, um, and some situations that needed to be handled, and didn't really, they needed some help on some recordings from Kingdom Come, and I played on some of the recordings, and God bless James, he had some issues for a second, and then I went in and they asked me to start working with them, and it was like for a good year and a half or so, kind of back and forth, and didn't know what was going to happen until it was right before James' death. We decided to move forward, and change the lineup, and I started rehearsing with JB and Danny, and then we brought Zeke in, Ezekiel Kaplan. He auditioned after about 5 or 6, 7 singers, came in and did a great job, and we ended up hiring him and put the band back together and started booking some shows. And we're excited that Rick is back. So there's 3 original members in Kingdom Come, which is way more than most of the bands from that era, and we're very, very proud of it. The band sounds better than ever. That's not just my opinion, and we're ready to do it, and we're excited. So yeah, the final lineup is Ezekiel Kaplan on vocals, me, Matt Muckle on drums, and Danny Stag on the guitar, Rick Steier on rhythm, and of course JB Frank bringing the thunder on the bass. And we're ecstatic. We're ready to do it again, and we're happy, and that's most important.
Why did you decide to pick Buffalo, other than the fact that we're probably the best place in the world for like the greatest, most dedicated rockers in the world, and it's a great city. Other than
Yeah,
that, why did you?
I mean,
How did we get so
love,
lucky?
we love Cleveland, and we love the Cleveland Indians, I should say. We don't love the Cleveland Browns. No, but Cleveland reminds me a lot of Buffalo, and what the band's trying to do is be laser focused on regions. So like the region of like playing in like a few shows in Ohio, a few shows in upstate New York, like along the lake area, and back down to Pittsburgh. So we're doing like 4 or 5 shows in a row usually, and then coming home. So we'll fly into a city and then drive, and have everything backlined, So Buffalo was on the list last time back in to be added to the 3rd or 4th tour dates back in March, and we end up pulling the date. I don't know why we did that, but we did. But we are ecstatic. It was close by, 3.5-hour drive from Pittsburgh, and then Columbus 3.5 hours as well from Pittsburgh, and we're just trying to focus on 4 or 5 shows in a row, and like a 4-hour driving distance from one another. You know what I mean? So
we're reintroducing ourselves with the the new guys, and so far every time, all the reaction has been amazing. Like we play someplace, and then somebody will say to us, I can get you 3 more shows in Texas. Like we just played in Texas a couple months ago.
5 more. We have 8 dates in February.
So it's being received really well, and I think one of the reasons for that is, God bless them, a lot of bands that have been out, 80s bands and stuff, have been out, and they've been out for 25, 30 years doing shows. And rather than us dropping off the radar completely, it seems like people are like, it's a refreshing change, that, well, what Kingdom Come? I remember them. I saw them at Monsters of Rock. So there's like the survivors of the 1 million people that saw us on Monsters. They're all over the country. And so they might be a little skeptical, like, oh, Kingdom Come. Yeah, they haven't done anything in 1 million years. Like, what's up with them? I guarantee you, their friends who do go to our shows are coming back and saying that we kicked ass, because we are kicking ass.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question was going to ask about what we can expect during the show. I read something a week ago or so about there possibly being new music. So I was wondering if you're going to include any new music in the set, or are you just going to concentrate on the first couple releases?
Where did you hear that? I would love to know. Was it in online
I
or something?
Yeah, it was online, and I think it was from an interview that was recently done.
Okay. Well, yeah, we actually are going to do two new songs in the set, songs that we wrote, um, and we just recorded them, and they're in the can for an upcoming release. Um, Probably within the next 2 or 3 months, we'll have an EP out, and yeah, two of the songs that we just recorded that are in the can are going to be featured on this set.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, if the people that come here are going to witness history. Yeah,
Have you played these songs before?
in front of people, no.
Wow. So Buffalo might be the first, is going to be the first town to hear these new songs.
Actually,
Yeah,
yes. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I don't think we're going to go. Okay, everybody, here's the first of our new two songs. We're just going to like throw them in there, and everybody's going to be like, "Oh, this song rocks." Well, what's that? And then maybe when we're done with the songs, we'll say that those you might not have recognized. Like, I'd rather tell the audience after we play them, because like there's that weird sort of pressure. Like, here we go. I hope you like it. Like screw that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to be very exciting. Then I didn't realize that Buffalo would be the first place here. That's awesome. Well, thanks for giving us that honor. I appreciate that.
Well,
So I'm assuming from what I'm hearing from you guys that this is going to be like a full-time commitment to Kingdom Come going forward, correct?
Correct.
absolutely. Correct.
And hopefully hooking up with some like major tours in the summer from 2025. Is that a goal, or would you rather just
That
be playing headliners and clubs and
that's
that
the
at this
goal.
point?
That's definitely the goal. We're going to be on everybody's radar, because the shows are going really well. This band, we got great chemistry, and it definitely it's going to make some people notice. And uh, I still have friends from the '80s. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see us doing shows with some of those bands. And plus, there's the Monsters of Rock cruise. There's Monsters on the Mountain. There's different festivals and stuff. M3. We want to get back on that. We had a kind of an obstacle there when our drummer James, back our original drummer, he had problems at Sweden Rock, and he was falling asleep on his drums more or less. And that was the worst disaster of any I've ever experienced in my life on stage. And we got a lot of bad press for that. People were really cruel. I mean, James had a disease. He was an alcoholic, and he couldn't not drink. He couldn't stop. That's probably what killed him. And that's real sad. But we had to overcome that. We kind of had to start from scratch in a way, like to have like people. Maybe we lost all credibility with people to a degree anyway on after that show, and so we kind of had to reestablish ourselves that we're worthy of doing those festivals and stuff like that. Well, the word will get out. We will. We definitely are having an impact on people. They're like, "You guys kick ass! I forgot how good you guys were." Blah blah blah. We're like, "Yeah, we're not dead. We still have the two guitarists and the bassist, the original guys, and Muckle's the perfect guy to fill James's shoes, because he's funny, he's normal, he's a born and bred rocker, a rock and roll animal. And I knew when we were having some problems, and I discovered Muckle more or less in Pittsburgh, and I was like, if anything ever happens, this is the guy right here. And then it became a reality, and we recorded together, and here we go, making history again.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah, from the video footage I've seen of Matt, I mean, I agree. I mean, Matt, you're such a powerful drummer. I mean, I watched you play in these videos, and like, it brought up like, like memories of John Bonham. I mean, you're a very powerful drummer.
Well, thank you. That's those are big shoes to fill. Both
Yeah.
me and James, they're to me, James and John Bonham were probably, and Alex Van Halen, probably my, probably the three best rock drummers that walked on stage ever. And to go and play and fill James's shoes is a big honor. And he was a good guy, man. A lot of people liked him. And this is not the first time I've played in bands that he played in. And it's I've replaced him in a few different bands in the past, and and everyone kind of compared me to him. So I'm very, very thankful that I bought those cassettes back in the late '80s and learned the album from front to back, and yeah, and I'm just very blessed. My talent's on borrow, and I'm just here to play rock and roll and have a great time with my friends, and this is what this is. It's a celebration of a great rock and roll band and bringing it back, breathing life into it again, and resurrecting it and plowing through the wall, making it happen again.
As
Danny,
they say, as they
Dan,
say in Japan, let's rocking.
Yeah, I keep.
Yep.
the interesting thing about Kingdom Come was that the band, with the original lineup, didn't really last that long, which was always kind of a mystery to me. I mean, the band was formed in '87, and the original lineup was disbanded in '89. But
Yep.
in those that time period, you guys made such a big noise and had so many highs. Um, Danny, how much of a like a letdown was that the band didn't last that long? I mean, I felt like you guys had a lot more potential.
Well, it was a combination for me of depression and anger when that happened because it had nothing to do with me, had nothing to do with JB, it had nothing to do with Ricky, and it really had nothing to do with James. The band broke up over just now. It had been building, there was some resentment here and there, I guess, um, and it had been building, and then it was set off one day by. That's a kind of a long story, but. We basically broke up because there was the deli tray wasn't right in the dressing room, and the water for the tea wasn't hot enough, and we weren't going to get a sound check, and all this stuff. And there was it was an outdoor show in West Virginia on some guy's farm, like a mini Woodstock, 15,000 people maybe, in a big field. And we were sitting in our tour bus watching all the people come in. There was only one road in. And we were watching, and it was pickup trucks full of guys with Kingdom Come shirts on. And we were co-headlining with Warrant. And some shows, it would be all girls because girls loved Warrant. And our audience was a little more in between. We weren't necessarily a glamour band, where like Warrant just had tons of girls following them. Well, this show looked like, oh, it's definitely going to be our show. This is going to be great. And we didn't need a stinking sound check. We played 400 dates together. Someone could have been shooting at us with a machine gun, and we would have still played fine. And so it was just a bunch of stupid stuff, and it built up. And James said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here. That's it. I'm done. I'm doing the next 2 weeks of shows, and that's it." And Lenny's reaction was, well, then everyone else is fired, rather than deal with it like adults and say, okay, cooler heads need to prevail here. Lenny just decided, that's it. He probably didn't want to shoulder the blame for what had happened because it really was kind of his fault. I think he'd admit it now. He was young and hot-headed. He's humbled himself a lot since then. And what happened. And I can remember just thinking like, God, how fucking stupid, like, why would you want to quit now? Our second round was like about maybe a week away from being gold. We had another European tour booked. Polydor owed us a third release. So we were going to do a third record. another tour of Europe, probably a bunch of dates in the States. I mean, there was no reason we would stop. Grunge came along about a year later and all that, but we could have gone at least a total of 5 years and 5 albums, I bet. And it was a real. I think it was a dark day in music history because our second record, if you notice, we had matured a lot. Our songwriting and everything the next logical step would have been a lot more of Johnny and I and writing with Lenny, and there would have been more of a band contribution as far as writing. But we had really, I think, established ourselves as being, major band. And, I think about what could have been, and it pisses me off. It was really stupid. It was just dumb.
Did the label or management try to
Yes.
have Letty change his mind, and he was
Yeah.
stubborn and just wouldn't change his mind? Huh?
Yeah, I was licking my wounds actually on the shore of Lake Erie on the other side from you guys in Buffalo. I was on a beach in Waynfleet, and I was hanging out and just trying to de-stress. That we had finished our last show was in Louisville on August 19th of '89. You notice how I remember that date? Because it was an important day. It was the last Kingdom Come show, original members, and I got a call, and it was Dick Asher, president of Polydor, the subject of the book called Hitmen, with Walter Yetnikoff, Clive Davis, Dick Asher, and one other guy, maybe Ahmet Erdogan or something. But it was about the guys that were the record moguls in the 70s and 80s. There's a book about this guy. He was a kingpin. He actually personally called me and offered me a bunch of cash if I would commit to doing the European tour that was already booked. And I didn't tell him, but I would have done it for nothing. He said, we're going to offer you X amount of dollars if I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, I never quit the band. This is stupid. And he said, thank you, Danny. And then he hung up. He called me from the big city out there in New York City.
New York City.
Yeah.
Oh. So did that happen? You didn't end up playing those shows though, did you?
Nope. Lenny wasn't interested, or I guess, it was like, I guess what he wanted to do was like, either get, Rick and James left the band at the same time. So we would have needed a second guitarist and a drummer. I don't think James was coming back. There was another project that they were working on together for, I think it was, I can't remember what label. I don't want to say, but yeah, they had other commitments. So it wouldn't have been the original five. I don't even remember if that's what Dick Asher wanted. We probably could have toured with me and Lenny and 3 new guys, because pretty much the sound, James was a pivotal part of that band being as heavy as it was. But without James, there's other drummers out there, maybe we could have got somebody like Vinny, or there's a bunch of good drummers out there at the time. And JV and I and Lenny, it would have still sounded like Kingdom Come. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Was there any time since the band breakup, was there any time that Lenny reached out to you to get you back in the band, or has there been any contact with you and Lenny at all over the years?
Well, in 2014, we all agreed to put the original 5 back together.
Uh-huh.
And we actually got to the point where we had an agent and shows were being booked, and we were going to start rehearsing out in LA. And Lenny flew out from Germany, and we got through one rehearsal, and it fell apart because James had to go back to play with Scorpions. Scorpions had told James, yeah, we're winding it down. We're only doing, 50 or 60 shows a year now. And Klaus knew that James had been talking about putting Kingdom Come back together, and he knew there was a market out there for it. And it was like a dream of his the guy that quit, funnily enough, he wanted to put the band back together. He always loved the band. He loved Johnny and I and Rick. We were all great friends. And so what happened was Scorpion said, yeah, James, you can do Kingdom Come now, with our blessing. Like, just don't double book, if we have a show, you don't book a show on any of the dates where there's a Scorpion show. And, he's still going to get paid the same way. Wouldn't have to change his contract or anything. He said, if you want to fill in some dates with Kingdom Come, that's great. So that's what we were going to do. Then Klaus had surgery on his knee. He was in the hospital, and he's a sober guy. He was in the hospital, and they had him on painkillers and all this stuff. And he had a change of heart, and he told James he couldn't do it. And we had already put it in motion. And they said, we're going to do another record. Like, remember how Scorpions retired about 6 times in the last 10 years?
Yep.
This was one of those times. And they said, you have to come back. We're going in the studio and we're doing a tour. And James had no choice. He didn't want to throw away a lot of money and screw the band over. So he said, I'm sorry, guys, we can't do it. He was in tears. He felt really bad. And so Lenny went home, back to Germany. And I started looking for drummers out in LA. It was, Brian Tishy and all these guys. I was trying to find a drummer of world-class caliber. And man, drummers, they're always busy. It's hard to nail a drummer down, sometimes.
Where was Matt back then?
Muckle was, I don't know. What were you doing in 2014, Muck?
I was in LA. I think I was playing with I may have been playing with John Waite at the time, or Christian Chenoweth. I can't remember.
You could have saved me about 10 grand. I stayed out there. I lived in a hotel for like a month, and
I was probably in Huntington Beach, and I think I may have been playing with John that year. I was with Christian Chenoweth.
Wow. Because if we'd have got together with you and played, we'd have been like, okay, our search is over. It would have been fucking obvious. We found the guy, but it wasn't meant to be. But they say, I say, I wouldn't change anything that happened. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm grateful. We're rocking. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, the universe, God has a plan for us, and it's kind of in our name. Our band's called Kingdom Come, and it's from the Lord's Prayer about, God's will being done on earth like it is up in heaven. And that's, how cool is that? And so, surrender and rock, and everything will work out in the end.
Yeah. Again, I'm super excited that I'm going to be seeing you guys next week. I guess my last question I have for you, Danny, is that when Kingdom Come released their first record in 1988, there were a lot of critics that just called you guys nothing but a Led Zeppelin clone band. And if you really listen to the record, definitely there were definitely Led Zeppelin influences, but who wasn't influenced by Led Zeppelin? Did you guys take that stuff personally? Did it hurt you guys, or do you think it kind of helped, or what do you think about all that?
I think that we should have just said, wow, that's an incredible compliment to be even mentioned in the same breath as Led Zeppelin. Next question. That's what we should have done. But we were like, I didn't, pay dues out in LA for 10 years, schlepping around, trying to get record deals, writing songs, recording demos, doing all this crap. I didn't do that to have somebody dismiss me as being a bad imitation of Jimmy Page, or things like that. It's like, I considered myself at the time to be worthy of being, I hate the word famous, known around the world as a good guitar player, you know, in the big leagues, more or less, you know. And so I finally get there, and critics have to start doing this stupid shit. They're basically trying to make a name for themselves. I know about the press now. I didn't know then. We were, none of us had been that successful before. So, you know, there was. I'll tell you a quick story. There was the first show on Monsters was at Alpine Valley, Wisconsin. There was 33,000 people there. That was our baptism by fire in the United States. It was the first show we did here. Backstage afterwards, and a guy from MTV comes up to me, and this is going to be on MTV News or whatever. And he's got the mic with the MTV logo on it. I'd been watching MTV already for 6 or 7 years, and it was just my dream was coming through in front of my face. You know, Rick, I'm there. And he says, he had this real distinctive nasally voice like that. He said, a lot of people think you guys sound too much like Led Zeppelin. What do you have to say about that? And I said what I said. I said, well, you know, that's great to be compared to Led Zeppelin or whatever, but I was way more into Hendrix. You know, I never bought a Led Zeppelin record. I loved Led Zeppelin 1 and 2, listened to them all the time, but I never I didn't rush out and buy the next Zeppelin record. I wasn't like a fan. I was way into Hendrix. My biggest influence was Jimi Hendrix. So about 3 nights later, I check into my hotel. I turn on the TV, and I got MTV on. Everybody had MTV on their TV 24 hours a day. It was like a radio station. And lo and behold, Jimmy Page is on TV. So I go, oh, turn it up. It's Page. Turn it up. And I hear that same voice. It's a disembodied voice. You can't see the guy. You just see the microphone and then the mic going in Page's face. He goes, Kingdom Come's guitarist says he's never heard your playing. What do you have to say about that? And that's what started all of that shit. I wanted to throw that guy down a flight of steps. The next time I got the most evil imagery in my head. I was so pissed at that guy for doing that. I mean, yeah, even though I was into Hendrix more, Page was one of my heroes. I don't want Page thinking I'm some stupid asshole that would pretend I'd never heard him play. I mean, that's so absurd. And, you know, oh, yeah. Hi, I'd like to introduce Danny Stag to Jimmy Page. Hi, Jimmy, this is Danny Stag. He says he's never heard you play. I'd be like, yeah, great introduction. You know, thanks a lot. And so I think that probably cost us about 2 million to 10 million record sales when that guy did that. You still see to this day, Kingdom Come's playing blah, 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 and there's comments, and someone will say, Kingdom Clone, or someone will say, yeah, I wonder if their guitar player has heard Jimmy Page yet. They still reference that. And that was the most annoying thing about that. And then eventually, you know, we would start fucking around. They'd say, we'd go, Led Zeppelin, who's that? Jimmy who? You know, and we were joking. And that people didn't get it. They thought that we were hell-bent on this like conspiracy to pretend that we had never heard Led Zeppelin. And here's another thing. If it's so fucking easy to make a record that sounds like Led Zeppelin, how come nobody else did it? Uh-huh. That was all you heard on AOR stations. You heard Stairway to Heaven every freaking day. You heard Black Dog every day. You know what I mean? You heard all these Zeppelin songs every day. They were a staple of rock radio, and everyone loved it. So a band comes along that's doing the same kind of thing, bluesy, heavy without beating you over the head with a sledgehammer heavy, you know, and we had that sort of mystical, Celtic, melodic English thing and the American blues thing going, just like Zeppelin did, and we all played our asses off. You know, Poison couldn't have made a record that sounded like Led Zeppelin if you put a gun to their head. We had to sound like Led Zeppelin to a large degree because we all could play.
Good point.
You know, yeah, instant success. Just imitate Led Zeppelin.
Right. What I heard more than anything, I mean, and they're still one of my favorite bands from the 80s. Nothing sounded more like Led Zeppelin than Steel of the Night with John Sykes and Whitesnake. You know,
Right.
nothing.
Right on.
Like, I mean, I was like, wait a minute, this sounds more like Led Zeppelin than Kingdom Come. Like, so I remember being young and hearing those comments being made. I'm like, I don't hear. I mean, I hear some Zeppelin in Kingdom Come, but man, I mean, Whitesnake really sounded like like Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean? So
Who was that playing drums for Whitesnake? That was
Tommy Aldridge.
yeah, Tommy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They had really good musicians in their band. They had a drummer that could play a monster backbeat. They didn't rush and play like amateurs, you know. And so boom, and they had a singer that could sing blues and could scream melodically and didn't just prance around with a bunch of makeup on.
Yeah, I mean,
That's a good point, Matt. Because that's a very good point. Yeah, they definitely did sound much more like Led Zeppelin than Kingdom Come, especially with that song. All right, well, guys, I want to thank you very much for your time, and I will see you on Wednesday. And you know, I'm looking forward to rocking out.
Awesome. So are we.
thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And thanks for doing it the last second. I do appreciate that.